Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські Українська поліція справи заводить, та вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод. Слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 673 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And NATO is preparing for war. What do you know?
What do you know? And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And tonight we have some incredibly odd and very rare news. This is actually the first time that we've heard a statement made this plainly by a NATO official or an official of a NATO military before. We're going to be covering that here in a second, but I want to quickly say that tonight is a bit of an exception to our normal news coverage nights. We don't really see comments like these being made quite often out there in the NATO world, for that matter. telling people that it is a high possibility that the NATO alliance will be going to war with the Russian Federation. In fact, we've, I believe, hardly ever covered anything about NATO possibly going to war with Russia, except for the times that US and Polish forces, along with British forces, were moved into larger numbers into Romania and the Baltic states. Beyond that, an instance like we're about to be covering has never really popped up on this channel before, and the fact that a general made this statement today is really starting to make this seem a little bit more serious than it has been before. Now, really quickly, I do have to preface this by saying that NATO is not going to war at the moment. It appears that officials in Europe are making statements that make it sound like a war may actually be on the horizon, who knows when, but we are hearing statements that are quite concerning from NATO officials. I'll be taking y'all to where we saw that today, which was on Twitter and was posted by Next to TV, a very reliable news source from what we've been able to find. And according to the chief of the Dutch Armed Forces, he said, as a direct quote, "The Netherlands must realize that the whole society must be prepared in case something goes wrong. We should not think that our security is guaranteed just because we are 1,500 kilometers away." He then recommended that civilians inside of the Netherlands start to stock up on food and drinking water in case of an emergency. Now, the part of the statement here that saying that they should not feel safe just because the war is miles or thousands of miles away is something of a normal statement. The additional statement that they should be stocking up on food and water is something that is fairly new and something that we've never seen before. Stocking up on food and water is something that here in the United States is highly recommended whenever a hurricane is hitting the southern or eastern coast of the United States. And usually that means that there is some kind of an inevitable risk or a threat that is going to be facing the civilian populace within the next few days or weeks. If we were going off of a precedent laid out by hurricane preparedness here in the United States, this means that this is something more of a telltale sign than any other that we've seen that may indicate that NATO is possibly looking at a situation serious in the background that we're not hearing about on the public end. We don't know what that would be. There are several hypothetical scenarios that we may be seeing where there is a possibility of NATO getting into an armed engagement with the Russian Federation, although it would probably be small in scale, and not only that, probably short-lasting. One of those areas would be near the Estonian border at the city of Narva. Narva is a flashpoint in the modern day as far as NATO and Russian border security goes, because Narva sits on the major highway, the E20 highway to St. Petersburg, which is considered an attack corridor that the Russians seriously consider to be a weak point of the modern Russian Federation, putting the second largest city inside of Russia within striking distance of a NATO attack. We could also see a hypothetical scenario where Russian forces attempt an attack across the Vyborg area and on into Finland, although these attack paths would be incredibly limited in their capabilities, and not only that, we would possibly see that these would be thwarted quite quickly. The NATO thrust, however, from Narva would most likely make it rather quickly down the highway after an air campaign had been sustained for around a week in the area. Going off of all of this and the statement by the Dutch chief of the armed forces, it does appear that the situation may be getting more serious, at least in the background. On our end, we have not really seen a lot of Russian force buildups that have been publicly spoken about anywhere along a NATO border that would lead to a statement like this. The statement is completely detached really from the situation that we're seeing publicly. However, officials like these, like the Chief of the Armed Forces of the Netherlands, are usually privy to a lot more information that we are privy to on this channel. And so whenever a statement like that comes out, where there is a bit of an alarm being sounded for people to prepare for something, we usually have to assume, and considering that this guy has not been proven untrustworthy at this point, like others have throughout the war, considering that this guy's first statement is one of alarm and preparedness, we have to take that at face value at the moment and assume that there is something going on behind the scenes that we are not seeing at the moment. We also know that thanks to VC Skyman, an amazing channel viewer, that he provided us with information that a U.S. officer, an anonymous U.S. officer inside of Poland, said that there was a notable buildup of Russian forces inside of the Kaliningrad Oblast. We do not know the quality of these forces, the divisions or brigades that have been assigned to this area, or the equipment that they may possess and the logistical ability to supply these forces over a sustained period of time, or the existing supply caches that are already inside of the Kaliningrad Oblast. Nevertheless, the buildup of Russian forces there may also be showing what is ringing the alarm bells for this Dutch Chief of the Armed Forces to come out and make a statement like this today. it is somewhat concerning to us, and that's why we wanted to make sure that we reported on this first and foremost tonight, because once again, I have to say, a statement like this has, from what we recall, never been made before by any NATO official, telling people to prepare for an upcoming war or some kind of an eventuality where supplies may become scarce. And that is...
The only thing that I wish that when people make statements like bold ones like that, I wish people would come out and back it up with some type of facts, because, if you're willing to make that statement to the public, you can't claim that you're keeping things secret for national security reasons, because otherwise you wouldn't make that statement publicly. So it seems like if he had some evidence to back up what he was saying, it'd be a big help, because he really didn't have anything except for, just stock up on stuff because something could be coming.
That's true. That's true. And sadly, I don't think we will be getting any information, because I bet you, considering that this would apply to pretty much the entire modern Western world for a Russian buildup to be happening, I'm sure they really don't want to talk about it too much, because you know what would happen, Matthew. The stock markets would tank. There would probably be some kind of economic turmoil or backlash, which would make things even worse. And then we would go into this a little bit weaker than we would have been otherwise. And that's probably why we're seeing that this guy is making an alarm bell statement, but we're not seeing any official news or coverage of this. We do know, however, that people have been noting and stating even to us that there are notable buildups of Russian forces inside of Kaliningrad. We have not heard about notable military buildups in the Finnish border area or the Baltic states region as well, but particularly in Kaliningrad we have been hearing about one. And the reason why this may be enough to ring the alarm bells in the NATO security sector is because this is right near the Suwalki Gap. There is a Polish city here in this area, and this is what the gap is named after. It's named after the city of Suwalki in northeastern Poland, but this gap here is considered to be the Achilles heel of the entire NATO alliance. In a hypothetical scenario where the Russian Federation went to war and the Belarusians were allied with them from the start, which is a very likely scenario, Russian and Belarusian forces could attempt to close this gap and completely cut off the Baltic states from any kind of supplies funneling in from the rest of mainland Europe. This could mean that the entirety of the Baltic states, as well as the NATO forces there, could begin to be starved out, also due to the Baltic fleet possibly trying to blockade or greatly limit the ability of the of NATO forces to continue to be resupplied in this area. Not only that, but we also know that there is a heavier air contingent that is now being moved into the Kaliningrad Oblast, which would be a go-to step to ensure that there is some kind of air cover for the Baltic fleet if they were to try and conduct a blockade on the Baltic states. So going off of all of this may be the reason why the alarm bells are sounding and this Dutch chief of the armed forces is making these statements. Because while we don't have any satellite or picture evidence to go off of ourselves, we do have enough experts and people who are in that field that have been telling us about this notable military buildup. It's not just BC Skyman's anonymous U.S. officer who he was able to talk to in Poland. We've also been hearing this from other people as well who've been watching this channel and have been able to get this information through one means or another. And these people are fairly trustworthy as far as their information has gone so far. We're going to keep an eye on this situation. Of course, I want to just let y'all know tonight that we're already starting to hear of alarm bells being rung by the Dutch chief of the armed forces. But at the moment, the situation doesn't appear to be escalating rapidly. It seems as though people are going to be standing by and waiting to see what happens, and we have not seen an official NATO armed response building up along the Kaliningrad Oblast, the Belarusian border, the Baltic states, or the Finnish border with Russia. So moving on from that, you would think that with these kinds of statements being made and the kind of insecurity that's being caused throughout a large amount of the Western world, that a lot of people inside of Russia would start to see that Putin isn't necessarily a great force, he's a destabilizing force, and this is an interesting conundrum. A lot of people would naturally think that Putin is an unpopular figure inside of Russia. And we're going to put that to the test. We were able to get a video from 1420 showing him interviewing people out in the rural areas, which is, funnily enough, actually still a majority of the Russian population lives in the rural areas, and we're going to be seeing what they think about Putin. It's an interesting question to ask because the seeds for a governmental change come from the unhappiness of the populace. And if they are heavily in support of Putin, Putin is very emboldened to keep doing what he's doing. Of course, the public could still be unsupportive of what he's doing. He would still most likely do what he does, but it makes it start off in a very fragile footing. If he has blind support of the public, then he can do whatever he wants and not have to worry about the repercussions, even 2 years after starting the war in Ukraine. And so let's watch this video, and let's see what people are saying about Putin. So I'm going to turn down the audio, so I can make sure to read subtitles that are in English, so that way everyone knows what we're hearing. Foreigners watch our videos. They are constantly surprised by how poor rural Russia people live compared to the Europeans and American rural people. Can you give any comments on that? You want my comment? They don't need to look after us. They should think about themselves. I'm glad that they are able to be surprised, but they are very mistaken. We live very well. Those who want to work will always live well. That's true. People in our region live poorly. We have low salaries, low pensions. We survive. We are used to this life. We have enough to buy bread and water. Thank God for that. The most important thing is that there is no war and the rest doesn't matter. She says that as they're in the middle of a war in Ukraine and like 350,000 Russians have died. But apparently there's no war going on, so hey, life couldn't be better, you know what I mean? The second thing they're surprised about is Putin's strong support among the villagers. At the same time, the villagers live very poorly. I don't know about that. We live well. If we don't support Putin, those American and European bastards will ruin everything tomorrow.
Oh, you wouldn't want that American stuff to move in.
Oh no, you wouldn't want those NASA hoodies that everyone in Russia loves. You wouldn't want more of those. That we live poorly and support Putin? Yeah, they were surprised about that. Every single person here supports Putin and their country. First of all, Russia is a patriotic country. So we will support our president as we have always done. We did it under the Russian Empire, under the Romanov dynasty, under communism, under Stalin, under Lenin. Of course we support him. This guy was even offended by the question. You could see him reel when he was asked that. He was like, of course we do. Who else? He is the only one. They think we're very poor. We still have outdoor toilets. So what? It's an open-air toilet. That's right. Although we have no poor people, Putin is great. He increased our pensions. I support Putin. He is our president. Putin is great. He helps poor Russians. Yeah, Putin. As a
Blink twice, you're being forced to say it.
Yeah, it's as a citizen of our country, I support our president's actions. Who else, if not Putin? Other person might make it worse. We respect.
Who else do you have to pick?
We support him all the way. We're supporting him because Russia is slowly starting to reclaim its own. Russia is a strong power because it destroys hundreds of US vehicles. Putin is bringing victory to us on his own hands. I do not support him.
Uh-oh.
Just look at the war. Why do you have to start it?
Tomorrow.
We set ourselves against the world. I feel sorry for people, for Ukrainians. I do feel sorry. And
Dang,
that's,
ripped to Vadim P.
and that's the end of the clip right there. But nevertheless, pretty interesting to see a gauge of the Russian rural population's ideas on the war. Most of them are actually in blind support of Putin, which is a very interesting thing to note. Others, like this guy, which is the only one we got to see in the video, he's not in support of the war, but it appears that he is the overall minority of the population out there in rural Russia. Beyond that, we are getting the idea that even 2 years later, the Russians still largely support Putin and what he's doing. This has been corroborated a lot by even polls conducted by Radio Free Europe, where we see that 74% of the Russian population is in support of the war in Ukraine and also in support of Putin, showing that apparently whatever Putin is doing, they are in complete support of, even if it means that they may be possibly going into a war with NATO, like we're seeing the chief of the Dutch Armed Forces talking about in his direct quote from today. With that, We're now going to be moving on. Also, I saw someone say, Don C said, that video is probably produced by the FSB. That actually was made by a channel called 1420, which we've been using ever since the beginning of the war, because they get a very good gauge on what the Russian public is thinking. We noticed that a lot of people in the rural areas are kind of indifferent to the war, but not really fans of it. But a lot of people in the rural areas do blindly support the Russian government and Putin. And we can see that that still holds over even now. But moving on from that and into Ukraine, we did get to see that inside of the port of Feodosia, we are still getting more clips and more pictures showing the wreck of the Novocherkassk inside of the port. We can see right here the sunken wreck of the Novocherkassk, as well as the oil slick and the smoke plume. And we can actually see that some heavy damage was caused to the direct siding of the dock, although it appears to have not really expanded farther into the harbor. We can also see here the sunken training ship that is still sitting at its moorings as well, both of them lost, and once again confirming that the damage to the port was moderate. Not a lot of it was extremely damaged, except for right around the ship, and that area may be easy to repair, considering it appears that maybe some rail yards and some pipelines were damaged in the process. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see some fragments of the ship as well, sitting around the port of Feodosia. We can see a pretty large one right here as a couple of citizens stand around and look at it and think about how great Putin is. We can also see this little piece of wreckage right here just kind of sitting there in the middle of the street, which is, of course, nice to see. Once again, proving the Novocherkassk is in multiple pieces. We can see some smaller pieces right there, and we can also see this little chunk sitting near the street as well. Overall, pretty interesting to note that there are a lot of pieces of the Novocherkassk just lying around out there inside the port of Feodosia, and hopefully proving to the Russian populace in that area, or the occupied Ukrainian populace in the area, that there is hope that the Russians may eventually be pushed out, because if 20% of the Russian surface fleet has been destroyed, that means that the Russians are, of course, the Ukrainians can win the war against the Russians. Moving on from that and into the location unknowns, we also have a couple of interesting ones of these as well. Starting off with our first bit, we got to see some Ukrainian soldiers falling into what is almost a parade square in standing by. Here's the clip. We can see them all here standing around over their YPR 765s. And that's the end of the clip, but very nice to see, and hopefully these soldiers will be moving to the front lines again to defend their nation well here in the near future. Moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see some more Ukrainian APCs being built. According to Alexander Kamyshin, who is the Minister of Strategic Industries, he says that the rate that they've been able to produce indigenous armored personnel carriers has increased by a factor of 5. Most of these are BTR-4s, and we can see the brand new ones here in the shed getting ready to be transported to the brand new units. Of course, the BTR-4 is an improvement on the classic BTR series APCs with a brand new 30mm autocannon mounted on top. These things are pretty heavy hitters for what they are, and some of them even have ATGMs mounted onto them. They're pretty powerful, and not only that, they're also armored personnel carriers as well, able to carry infantry onto the battlefield, meaning that this thing is a great all-rounder in what the Ukrainians would consider their indigenous equivalent to an infantry fighting vehicle, a lot like the Bradley, the Warrior, or the Martyr, or even the Puma in the modern days. Moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also get to see a small clip of Nepalese war tourists. We don't know who these guys really are, but they are from Nepal, and they're kind of just like LARPing around out there. We see these guys dressed up in some gear and walking around with some AK-12s. We are starting to note that AK-12s are getting a lot more common as the war keeps going.
I like the walking style they're doing here. They said line up in a row and walk real slow.
Yeah, I gotta say, mad respect to the walking style. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and out of the area, and we're quickly going to be hopping back to Kyiv real quick to cover the status of the Ukrainian air defense. We can see that they were able to destroy 7 Shahed 136s overnight, a very good air destruction record, and hopefully showing that the Ukrainian air defense is doing incredibly well. Moving on from that and back towards the location unknowns, we're now going to be getting on into the casualty report. But really quickly, I have to tell y'all something really quickly. I think we're actually going to have to end this stream a little bit tonight. I hate to always tell y'all about what's going on a little bit behind the scenes, but my stress is through the roof right now, and I don't really think I can make it through an entire show. So we're going to be kind of speeding up the next news segment and moving on into the question segment and then getting off a little bit early tonight. But moving on into our casualty report, we did get to see that the casualties were fairly good today. We got to see that 920 Russian soldiers have been wiped out, along with 7 Bobcat skid steers, a impressive 42 armored personnel carriers, 40 supply trucks, 27 main battle tanks, 15 artillery pieces, 13 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft system, and 1 boat. All in all, today's
Dang,
casualty
man,
report.
I gotta tell you what, 7 Bobcats in a day. I hadn't seen numbers like that in at least a week. I'm telling you, that's lovely to see.
Oh.
There's always a bot over there in the comments saying lies.
Yeah, always, but absolutely impressive figures to see and showing that the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well. We're now going to be moving on from that location unknown segment and hopping on into what y'all have been talking about, because a lot of y'all have been talking about what the chief of the Dutch Armed Forces was talking about today, and a lot of y'all have some comments and opinions to say about that. And so what do y'all got?
All right, so moving into our first poll and question segment, we have one poll to address, and the question says, the Dutch Army Chief says NATO should prepare for war with Russia soon, and what are your thoughts? 65% said it's a valid concern / preparation, 17% said I need more info first, 12% said it's fear-mongering for no reason, and 5% said unsure. And on this one, I'm perfectly honest with y'all. To make a statement like that to the people coming from the army chief is a little bit strange in my opinion. It's like the police yelling to the civilians, run for cover, there's criminals around. It's like, well, you're the police. This is the Dutch army chief saying this. So he's the one tasked with protecting the country, and he's telling the civilians, y'all should prepare for war. Well, it's like, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, but at the same time, it seems a little bit out of place in my opinion. But overall, I would say it's a valid concern, and I hope that the Dutch are prepared for an invasion before now. Hopefully they're not starting to just do that right now, because they should have done that a long time ago. So I'm with the 65%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I agree with the 65%. That is most likely a valid concern and a preparation on something that we do not know about behind the scenes. And so with that, we are on into the next one.
All right, and that was our only poll to address for now, so we are moving into our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $100 donation from Wes Fry.
Hey!
And that is very generous of you, Wes, and thank you very much for helping to keep this channel running, because the donors are the only thing that keep this channel on air, and we appreciate every single one of you very much. And Wes says, just cuz, and one from the chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Wes. Just cuz. Your Just Cuz helps us to make this thing possible and helps us to keep this thing rolling. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, let's make sure to get one from the chat.
And the one from the chat goes to Leonce Pierre, who says, do you think Russia will have trouble converting over to the euro?
Probably so. But I don't think the Europeans will take them, because the Russian economy is a one-track economy, mostly revolving around its oil, and that is a very dangerous economy to have tied into the euro common currency. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running, Wes, because without supporters like you, this channel wouldn't be able to run. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to the Duncan VR. Throws in a $60 donation. And thank you, Duncan, very much, as always, for that support. And I must admit, Duncan, I always look forward to these because I can be an absolute nut. And Duncan said, Bamuba, Baba, quack, woof, ruff, meow. Do I need to stock up on Big Macs and KFC? And Duncan, that's always a good idea, no matter what time of year it is. Bamu, meow. At least I have yacht. Can't escape upriver, meow, boo, blah, moo, no respect around here, meow. Happy New Year's, guys, bye-bye, for the pizza's fun, meow, woof, zoinks, Kermit.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Duncan, and helping the channel to keep on running. It would not be Elise Spring Army Night without Duncan VR's animal noises. And I have to thank you so much once again for the massive support, helping the channel to keep on running, and of course, throwing in the traditional animal noises. It means a lot, and I've got to thank you so much once again for making this channel possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be on air. And so thank you so much once again. And I see a lot of people talking about all kinds of stuff about us cutting the stream short and the stress and everything, saying, hey, you ought to calm down and everything. If y'all knew what was going on behind the scenes, it is some very serious stuff, and we're trying to keep it together as best as we can. However, it's really tough because it doesn't really have a lot to do with the channel. It has a lot to do with our own personal lives and everything involved with that. It's pretty stressful stuff, pretty serious stuff, but I want to make sure that we can try and get the news out to y'all as best as we can. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Duncan VR. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're moving back into the news.
All right, and the last one of the segment goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, AMX10, for always throwing in support as well. And we appreciate you, just like all the other channel legends.
Hey!
And he says, arguably, the biggest event of the year is the air denial over the front line in the Kherson that is protecting the Ukrainians as they eventually create a bridgehead. And Zaporizhia and Kherson will one day again be Ukrainian.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, AMX10. And also, I would say that that was probably one of the biggest events of the year. I would certainly say that Avdiivka and Bakhmut are as well, but with the Ukrainians able to swat down the Russian Air Force in the south as quickly and easily as they are, it is showing that they are making some really good progress, that's for sure. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, for being an old guard of the channel and always being here with us and always helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night, starting in the northeastern area where we got to see that the 43rd Brigade was hitting Russian forces pretty heavily today. Here's the clip. And we're going to be muting that for copyright reasons, but we can see them throwing in their intro. And we now see a Russian tank on the move.
Also, someone said, take a chill pill. Where do you find those?
I wish we could. We can see the tank rolling on through the fields. And we can see it getting hit by an ATGM right there, knocking the tank out. And we now see the tank rolling on even after it was hit. Rolling on for a good bit, as a matter of fact. And we can see it now getting hit near the tree line, being knocked out completely. We also see another tank up here laying out what appears to be a smoke screen.
Oh, I see. When folks are talking about chill pills, they're talking about hard drugs, apparently. I think that's off the menu. That's off the menu.
Valium? No, we're not doing any of that. But we can see this Russian tank burning out here. And we see the crew possibly bailing.
And also, by the way, I saw Ron Burrell Jr., who's a longtime channel legend, by the way. He said, nobody's messing with you guys again like those other ones did they? And no, that's not it at all. It's this time it's not even that. It's just some life things going on in the background. But, you know, it's stuff that everyone our age goes through. So we're trying to work through it. But y'all remember back in the day, for the ones of you that are not our age, they're a little bit older, y'all probably remember those good old days yourself. But, you know, well, you move on past them.
And we see more Russian tanks continuing to be hit here by the 35th Brigade. We can see multiple ones being knocked out. We can see that the drone here is trying to spot the tanks and make sure that they are taking them out as effectively as possible.
And yes, Junebug, the sound did go away for a few seconds. I don't know what that was. I think it was lag. And no, not puberty. What the hell?
Oh, man.
The hell?
Oh, it's funny. But we can see the Russian tanks continuing to burn. We can also see the BMP back here getting hit by what appears to maybe be an anti-tank gun of a sort, or some kind of an ATGM. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there, showing the destruction of these Russian vehicles, and of course showing that the Ukrainian defenders in this area did incredibly well. Moving on to the area near Vilshana, we also got to see that a Russian attack failed in the Kupiansk direction. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the large, massive, already destroyed Russian vehicles as a brand new column is moving right through. And we can see the BMP and the T-72 getting destroyed pretty much in the same area as the last surviving BMP continues to try and advance onto its objective, but then it also runs over an anti-tank mine and gets destroyed. We now see them being peppered by cluster munitions. And that's the end of the clip, but showing the complete destruction of another advancing Russian column by the 14th Brigade. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the 43rd repelling another Russian column. This is a duplicate, so we're going to be moving on past that and into our next clip. I'm also going to be deleting that one. We're going to be moving down here where we got to see Russian forces getting hit near Sinkivka. We're going to be muting that.
I'm telling you what, there's a tough crowd tonight in the live chat. I'm convinced that at this point we need a second channel called Enforcer Fight Club, and we can invite some on, and we don't talk about it.
Yeah, we could do that.
I think the viewers would love that, actually. We can start with, well, never mind.
When you see more Russian forces continuing to get hit, we can start with that asshole who was in the 10-minute countdown saying some smack. Saying that he's
I
going
have
to
beef
come
with
down
hot
here.
dog sellers. That's what I was about to say. I want to start with hot dog salesmen.
Yeah, we could start with that. But, you know. Actually, this is a duplicate as well, funnily enough. It's just in a different resolution. So we're going to be deleting that one as well, because everything up there apparently was a duplicate of each other. And we're going to be moving on down into the Crimea area, where we also got to see that the Ukrainians were repelling an assault in this forest today. Really quickly, everyone, I do not think I'm going to be able to make it through the rest of the news tonight. We're actually going to stop it here at Crimea and just move into the question segment and round out the stream early tonight, because I do not think I'll be able to keep composure to keep going through the rest of this news. So we're going to be moving on to the Crimea forest, where we got to see the 49th Brigade repelling a Russian assault in Crimea.
Це не подствольник, це сороковка. О, бач? З лівої сторони б'ють. Туди. Постріл. Красавчик, ще туди, давай сороковим, давай. Плюс, дякую. Ні, права сторона, ми ліво. Ще один. Лови аптечку. Как твой позывной, скажи? Центр. Жаунь, твой центр. Руки в сторону. Забирай, скорься с ним. Подходь. Ямы. В ямы, крию. Назад, крий. Скорпия, крию, давай.
Не пищи.
Хочешь спастись, давай.
Хуже уже не будет. Давай.
Ты попал в доблестный батальон Карпатська Січ.
And that's the end of the clip right there of the 49th Separate Brigade defending their positions in Marinka and we're going to be rounding out the news segment there. If you would like to see what else happened in Ukraine today in the Bakhmut battlefield, Avdiivka, or in the direction of Novocherkassk, as well as the Volodar direction, or in the south near Kharkiv and in Kherson, you can always make sure to click on the link in the description below, and it will take you directly to our map, which has all of these markers on it, and y'all can see everything that we were able to put down on the map today. At this moment, however, we're going to be moving on into wrapping up this stream. Of course, while I'm trying to get off a little quickly because I just don't really think I can run the stream tonight, I want to make sure to thank everyone who threw in support tonight to help to make the channel possible, because I feel like it would be very rude to just blow off y'all's support. Y'all are the people who helped this channel to be possible and help us keep this thing running, and I always want you to know that we are greatly appreciative of everything that y'all can do. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we don't have another poll to address, but we do have several super chat questions actually to address. And the first one is actually from last night. It's that $20 donation from Panama Floyd. And thank you very much, Panama. While I'm nearly choking my gum there, thank you very much for that support from last night. And it says, Japanese Patriot missile battery, never sell J-Tech short. And after World War II, Nikon made better than Leica for less money. And Nissan made a sports car as good as Porsche for half price. And imagine what they'll do with a Patriot battery.
And I thank you so much for the support, Panama Floyd. And you're absolutely right. The Japanese are very dominant in a lot of industries around the world and are usually known for cheap products that have incredibly high quality. And hopefully their Patriot system is an example of that. I think their Patriot system was American produced, however, and then shipped to Japan. But who really knows? It still probably is a very good air defense system nevertheless. And I gotta thank you so much for that support, Panama Floyd. You threw that in last night in our outro segment, but I always want to make sure to appreciate you and everyone who helps to keep the channel running. So thank you so much once again, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Hoodoo, Texas, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you, Hoodoo, as well, very much for that support. He says, it's a real mistake to think that Russia, when we should be thanking Putin. And if Russia was a normal government, it would behave rationally. But the Putin dictatorship is capable of anything, and psychopathic logic doesn't count the cost.
And I thank you for the support, and I would agree that the Russian government is a pretty messed up one, no doubt about it at all. And also, let's see here. Let me make sure I can, let's see. Here we go. I would have to say you're right, Hoodoo. I would say you're correct on that for the most part. But we also have to consider that for some reason, most Russian governments do evolve or turn into something like this. And that's always something we have to consider as well. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support, Hoodoo, and helping this channel to keep on running. Sorry that the answer is a little short and not well thought out tonight, but I do thank you for the support nevertheless and helping this thing to be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also real quick, because I see a lot of people worrying about, you know, what it is that's causing the problem in the background. Without going into too much detail, it's nothing, you know, super serious to the point where it's like, you know, life and death or anything. It's just some things that we're concerned about our future career paths. We're reaching a point where we're really not sure what we're wanting to do at this point, even though we're in law school. And it's starting to catch up to us a little bit. So that's what's going on in the background if you're curious. So I see some folks really getting concerned, and I appreciate the concern and also the kind words and the words of encouragement and support in the live chat. It's certainly appreciated. Trust me, we're both experiencing it at the same time. But, you know, it's one of those things you just got to get over and move on and figure out what you're doing. It's just the way life works. Coming from a 23-year-old. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat question. We have a $31 donation from Margaret Hemsley, who says, just because, and I'll just piggyback on the thanks you gave the previous super chat. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support.
And thank you so much for the support, Margaret, and helping the channel to keep running. And thank you for throwing in some support just cause. You've been around forever, an absolute channel legend and an old guard. And I have to thank you so much for being here with us again and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to James Hughes, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, James, for that support. And he says, if USA aid does stop, do you think Ukraine will attack Russia on the ground and try to reach Moscow?
I would say, or can you reread that one again?
James says, if USA aid does stop, do you think that Ukraine will attack Russia on the ground and try to reach Moscow?
I do not think so. I think they'll probably be trying to make sure to stay within their borders. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. But I don't think a Ukrainian offensive will ever go into Russia officially. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, just if anyone else is curious, we haven't gotten our grades back yet, so that's not the reason why we're upset. If you're curious, so we haven't got the grades back. But anyways, that's stress in itself. But moving on to our next one, we have a $20 donation from Siri, and thank you very much for that support as well. They said, "Thank you for your work, Enforcer Brothers, and you are loved. Interesting, insightful article to understand. Russians, quote unquote, for Russia's and Ukraine, and Moscow Times. It helped me. And EXO from Norway."
And hey, thank you so much for the support from Norway. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for being here with us for a pretty good while as well. You've been around forever, Siri, and I gotta thank you for being one of those old guards. I will say I will look into that article and try and read a little bit and see what I can get from it, of course. But with that, thank you so much once again, and thank you for being a Lee Spring Army viewer all the way from Norway. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Liam Mimog's channel, who puts in a 20 as well, and does not leave a comment this time, but thank you very much, good sir, for that support and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep rolling. Folks like you do make the thing possible. I think I say that to everyone at this point, but everyone's support is greatly appreciated, and if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here on air right now. And I want to thank everyone who supports the channel, because without y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Certify, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you, Certify, also. And he says, "I welcome peace and victory for the new year."
Hey, and don't we all? And I got to thank you so much for the support, Certify, and I hope that the world is able to find peace in this new year, although it probably will be a little tough. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to, as I try to scroll up in the spreadsheet and it lags on me, this one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang once again, who puts in a 15 this time, and thank you, good sir, once again. He says, "I like Enforcer Matt's comments on ideas and suggestions for the Western world and Ukraine. He brings calculated comments and is aggressive in policy when required. And Merry Christmas to you both." And also, AMX10, thank you for the very kind words as well. I don't throw in my comments nearly as much as the Enforcer does, because the Enforcer runs the show. He's the one that does the monologue. But thank you very much. When I do throw in my comments and stuff, it looks like you do appreciate them. So I appreciate you very much as well for appreciating them. Just a whole lot of appreciation going on around here. And also, Merry Christmas to you as well.
And thank you so much once again for the support, AMX10, and also the kind words to Matthew as well. And with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And the next ones go to Old Buzzard as well as BC Skyman, who each throw in a $10 donation and do not leave a comment. But thank you, Old Buzzard and BC, once again for the support. And Enforcer, do you have something to say?
And I do. I want to thank both of y'all so much for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but the support does help us to make this thing possible and helps us to keep this thing running. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. I've said that so many times tonight, but I hope that y'all know that we greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all's support. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And I'm telling you. The next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 5. And thank you, Sarge, for that support. He says, "Since last night's map adventure was kind of a bust, tonight let's check out Randall Street in Orlando." I think that's more of what you're looking for. Did we check that out last night? I could have sworn we did.
No, we didn't check out Randall Street. So let me try and get Randall Street, Orlando. Let's go check it out. So here's Randall Street. This looks to be in the center western side of Orlando, sorry. But let's drop down here and let's see what we got. So, this is a little bit more our style with like the boarded up houses and stuff, I would agree. But still, it doesn't look that bad. I guess it's maybe the Florida sun just making things look nice and green. Maybe that's it. But it's still, it is getting rougher though, I will say that. In my opinion, this is a little bit rougher. But still, thank you so much once again for support, LSA Sergeant Figment, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you once again for making this channel possible and allowing us to look at another hood review. People do enjoy the hood reviews. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to BC Skyman, who throws in a $20 donation. And BC, thank you very much for the second or third super chat of the night. Can't recall which one it is, but thank you very much. Good stuff for that support. He says, we appreciate all that you guys do, and you guys can always take a break anytime, and we will be here. And I need you guys, I need to take you guys hunting with me in Alabama. It's a great stress reliever.
Hey,
I'm telling you, I've heard that from a lot of folks, BC, and I tend to believe you on that one, because you are an avid professional hunter, if I do say so myself.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, BC, and helping the channel to keep rolling. And also, thank you so much for the offer for the hunting trip. That is incredibly nice. Yeah, a lot of people have said it's a stress reliever, but this is a really big thing that, you know, I'm concerned about, stressed about. You know, I've tried to keep it under wraps, but you know, nothing really helps out with that at all. So, you know, it all ends up boiling over right before the show. So then I'm just stressed about it while I'm on air. But nevertheless, thank you so much for appreciating what we do. It is folks like you, BC, who have made it possible for us to do this for so long and will hopefully help us to keep on doing this. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next ones are from John Gardner as well as Ari Soini, also known as Kiwi Wife and Finn, and they each throw in a $5 donation without a comment. But thank you, John and Ari, very much for that support. And Enforcer, would you like to say it again?
Yes, I would. I would like to thank the Kiwi Wife and Finn so much for the support. Y'all are old guards and have been here for a really long time. And I gotta thank y'all for being here with us again tonight and helping us to keep this thing rolling. It means a great deal to us. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be here right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizanant, who also puts in the 5 and said, here's 5. And thank you for that 5. He says, now go ahead and take 5 and have a good night. And that's how it feels to chew 5 gun, baby.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, helping the channel to keep rolling. And thank you once again. It means a lot. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Little Something Jam. I almost said your whole name. They put in a $5 donation, and thank you very much, Little Something, for that support. They said, no worries, I know what it is like being stressed out. And take care of you, too.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Little Jam, and thank you for understanding kind of the plight we're in. It's a really serious one for me, and I thank you so much for having some compassion and understanding, and I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our last one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a 2. And just want to say thank you for your hard work.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying the hard work. We try our best to put this stuff out every day. And while we're not covering all of it, y'all can always make sure to click on the link in the description below and go check out today's map, because all of our markers that we're covering on air are on that map. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we also got a 5 from George Tincher, a channel legend as well. He said, here's a mini stress buster. And thank you for that. Tonight, the support side of things and, you know, running this thing as a business side of things isn't really what's stressful. It's some other stuff that's also really serious as well, but still pretty tough to deal with in the background. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, George. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're going to address 3 live chats. And also, thank you so much for the 10, Jenna. Jenna Myers threw in a 10. Thank you so much for the support. You didn't leave a comment, but it does mean a lot, and we thank you for the thought and helping the channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're now going to be getting on into answering 3 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream tonight. And so with that, we're on to the first one.
All right, and moving into our live chat questions. Up first, we have the Morse code coders of the stream. We had Cliff Simonson tonight, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rebel Stilchin, Toxic Bananas, Tytlon Zeloso, and also, most importantly, David Millsaps. David Millsaps is actually the one I grabbed the Morse from tonight, and he said NATO must prepare for whatever may come our way in the world. Long live the LSA and Slav Ukraine.
Hey, and I ding 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 ding. That is the Morse code message of the night, and you got it dead on the nail. Congratulations to you, and thank you all so much once again for doing that for 673 days. And so with that, hope that does address that well, and we are on to the second and last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to AF Kaplan, who says, could the developments within NATO help to expedite bringing Sweden into the alliance?
It possibly could. There's a possibility for that, but we don't really know. There's a lot of moving parts involved in that kind of thing, so I'd have to analyze that a little bit farther than I am tonight. But with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and the lucky last viewer of the night is going to go to, let's see here, it's going to go to Halligan218, who says, what sort of information do Russians in the rural areas have access to, And it seems like those cities might have more access to back channel and new info. And Hal, again, real quick before the enforcer answers that question, we do know that the people out in the rural areas where they literally have hardly anything and they can barely buy bread and water, like the lady was saying in that video a moment ago, they all apparently seem to have TVs and also TV connections as well, because the Russians have to be able to get the propaganda in those village huts. And the only way to do, basically indoctrinate them is to put the TV there and start blasting that Russian crap right to their homes and their telephone or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
It usually is for that reason. Matthew actually hit it pretty dead on the nail right there. So I guess I don't have to recap it because he got the answer instead. So with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I'm very sorry, everyone, that it was a shorter one. I know a lot of y'all enjoy to be here for nearly 2.5 hours every night. Sadly, this one's only an hour long. If y'all did enjoy it, though, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and also make sure to go click on the map to go get the rest of the news. We stopped at Crimea, so we didn't cover Bakhmut, Avdiivka, or the Southern Front. So if y'all want to see those, as well as Kherson, make sure to click on the link in the description below, and y'all can go check it out there. But with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. We'll see you all tomorrow, and get some rest. Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and thank you all for a good one tonight. And good night.
Yes. The Lee